Hello there, my fishy friends. My name is Peter, and today we're going to talk about Chinook run timing on the Vedder River. Before I dive into it, I just want to plug my own business for a sec. I know I don't bother you guys too much with sponsors, but I am a flooring contractor in the Fraser Valley. My specialty is tile, but I do other types of flooring as well. And I am looking for a little bit more business. So if you need something tiled or something floored, get in touch with me on Facebook and I'd be happy to help you out. I've got 20 years experience in the trade. I do a really nice job, high quality European workmanship. So thanks for listening, and let's dive right into Chinook run timing on the Vedder. So the Chinook runs on the Vedder River are artificial. The stock was introduced, and we have two separate runs of fish. So we have a summer red Chinook, and those Chinook are originally from, I believe it's Trap Creek up in Prince George. So they're a long-range upper Fraser River stock of fish. They were introduced back in the 1970s sometime, and they're doing reasonably well. They don't seem to reproduce in the river very much, so they're 100% hatchery generated. And that's a small run of fish, and they start coming into the river while it's still closed in June. And July 1st, when the river opens, there are already a bunch of them in. But that run doesn't really peak until sort of end of July. I think end of July is when you have the most red Chinooks in the river. And by the end of August, all those fish are quite old and stale. They're still spawning in the upper river close to the hatchery, or they're in the hatchery channel. But it's kind of all done. Now that run overlaps slightly with the run of fall white Chinooks. So fall Chinooks, they are a Harrison River stock, and we call them whites because you know, the Americans call them Ivory Kings. It's kind of a branding gimmick, I think, but we call them White Springs, white Chinooks, and they are the first ones show up at the end of August. So when I go at the end of August up to the limit hole near the hatchery, there are already a few white Chinooks in there intermingled with the stale old red Chinooks. They're typically the jacks. So jacks are 3-year-old fish, and they're a bit smaller, and they're always male, and those tend to show up first, and they're already around at the end of August. But the main run of the Chinooks doesn't really peak until end of September. So kind of last week in September usually is when we get the peak of the run. And let me explain to you what I mean by the peak of the run. So when you draw a graph of fish entering the river versus time, it kind of goes like this. And so these are new fish entering the river. Of course, that's different from total number of fish in the river. And every salmon run is kind of shaped the same way. You get a few early fish, then you get the main bulk of the fish, and then you get some late fish. So in the case of Chinook, the peak of that run is roughly the last week in September. It's plus or minus a week. So sometimes weather conditions or the lunar cycles kind of push a run 1 week this way or that. This year they came pretty much on time. They may have been maybe a week late, who knows? Anyway, so right now in the beginning of October, we're right in the middle of it. There are lots of Chinooks around. And with the increased hatchery production that we've had, there are lots of them. Sometimes it gets bothersome trying to fight them all the time. I really do my best to avoid them, and I've still landed a whole bunch. And that run kind of tapers down, and you can still get into some reasonably fresh Chinooks at the end of October. I think the latest I've ever caught a decently clean Chinook would be kind of first week in November, but they're really quite rare. Those are the outlier fish, the few rare stragglers of the run. So yeah, if you're aiming for Chinook, the best time to hit the Vedder is probably last week in September, first week in October. You should have some decent luck. They're a fairly easy fish to catch. Compared to the other salmon, they bite quite reliably, and they don't turn off right after first light like coho sometimes do. So I hope that was helpful. Thanks for watching. See you next time.